Hi, parents and teachers. I'd like to talk about a particular form of behavior that goes unnoticed. And in fact, it is probably one of the most difficult things I see in my practice. Quite sad often, because these group of children, honestly, are probably one of the most treatable but unrecognized difficulties that you might have with your child. So I'd like to tell you some stories about some of the children I see in my practice and how this particular subject is so important to recognize. You know, children that are struggling often at school don't have behavior problems. They're not annoying. They're not vindictive. They're not kind of causing trouble for their parents or their siblings at home often. And they don't cause trouble at school. And yet they often struggle. These are the kids that have chronic, unexplained underachievement. They don't do as well. Often the parents hear from the teachers that, only if your child could just finish their work in class, only if they could just concentrate a little bit better. You know, often, these kids, they kind of at the background. They can be smart, and often that gets unnoticed. So unless a child has a particular serious problem, like a learning difficulty or a behavior problem, or is very anxious, or really is struggling with learning problems, these children don't have those problems. Those children come to the notice of every one of us and the teachers quite quickly. But how about these kids that are the kind of concentration issues or the inattentive? You see, ADHD is not really a concentration problem. These kids can focus at home. If you give them something they're interested in, whether it's a girl or boy, but these are mainly girls, they watch TV, they watch videos, they watch kind of YouTube. They're quite interested in doing their arts and crafts, and they can hyper focus. They can do these things without a problem. And yet, they can't do those other things. So even starting out in the morning, you know, you know, believe it or not, these can show up in a very, very subtle way. So just imagine a scene in the morning, you know, in a child's bedroom, having to get woken up in the morning, really struggles to get going. They start off, they put on one sock, they tend to daydream. Parent comes back and says, Sally, hurry up, get dressed, come and eat your breakfast. Where's your bag? Have you got your things ready? Where's your kind of sports kit? Where are all your kind of pens and papers and stationery? And they've got to be panel beater. They've got to be driven in the morning. Parents get frustrated and then they often do things for their children. I often see this. Parents kind of end up dressing the child, doing all these things where a child for the age shouldn't need all that help. And yet the parents become frustrated because they're having to do more than, say, their other siblings. Now, does this kind of sound familiar with one of your children? So think about even at like the breakfast table, they stare into space, they're eating their cereal, taking their time, they're talking, they kind of get sidetracked. And it gets very frustrating because it makes everybody late in the morning. And then how about at school? To the teacher, this child might sound like they're zoning out, they're daydreaming. I've even had teachers say, this child zones out so much, I actually think possibly they have petit mal epilepsy. And how many of those teachers often want 24-hour EEGs, one test for epilepsy? But the difference with epilepsy, that child is completely unconscious for a couple of seconds. There's a big difference. But these children are so far removed. These children say to me, I think about purple dinosaurs. I think about space. I think about what I'm going to be doing after lunch. I think about my arts and crafts, what I'm going to be doing. Because they're not engaged, because ADHD is about the novelty gene. It's about being engaged. If something's interesting, they do it. They've got to be really kind of motivated. They've got a very small reward center. For them to do something or get engaged, it has to be a big kind of interest. So unless it's something interesting, particularly in a classroom that's often routine and boring and kind of something that happens all the time, they kind of zone out. They've got to be brought back to attention. And teachers might see this as a zoning out effect. So now let's kind of talk about the takeaway. So inattentive ADHD can be subtle. The symptoms are not that obvious, such as hyperactive and disruptive behavior. They can have a huge impact on your child's life, make them anxious, scattered. If your child's a bit anxious, they might really kind of try a lot harder and feel out of control because they wish they could do these things. So, how about your child's room? Overwhelmed with homework, papers spread out, unable to focus on one task. So, it's homework time, say, for your child. And, you've also got to force them, you've got to kind of browbeat them. Their minds dart and they disappear into different kind of directions. And as a result, 5 minutes goes by, it takes them longer to do the homework. Inattentive ADHD can make routine tasks, and getting ready for school and doing homework a real challenge. Now, guess what? It's often overlooked, mainly in girls, because they don't display those oppositional, defined behaviors. So, yeah, as you as a mother, discovering your child's book left behind, or they've forgotten things, they're careless, they're messy, they leave things at school, they lose things. So, next time you notice your child seems a bit spaced out or forgetful, don't write it off. It's just, it'll come right. Particularly if it's causing harm, they're falling behind with their work, they're underachieving. Particularly if someone else, like the teacher, says something, it might be worthwhile looking into it deeper. So early detection can make all the difference in helping your child navigate the world. So, I hope you found this useful, because these are the group of kids that often fly under the radar. They take a lot longer to get help, and by that stage, they've lost confidence. They've got poor self-esteem, and there are many adults. How many adults I see with this problem? Parents. And they often think about, if only they got help early on at school. So we don't want to necessarily allow your child to kind of go down the same path. Let's try and rewrite history and give them the help that they need. So if these are things that you recognize or it resonates with you, it's crucial to recognize this form. And remember, it's not one size fits all. So thank you for listening. And if these are things that you need to find out or would like to find out more about, we're here to help you.